Actually, let me check.
You can split the screens.
No, I'm actually good. So I'm good there. And then
can you switch? I think you can do the split screen.
Well, no, I'm recording. It just is recording the Zoom window.
Gotcha.
So, and then we are officially recording on. This is interview 86.
Can you do the split screen?
I mean,
so I think I did it with. There it is. Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Ready to rock?
Let's do it.
All right, guys, we are so excited for today's guest. We are with Lane Kawaoka from Hawaii. Aloha, Lane. What's up, man?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Good. Thanks for being on our show today. Just a little bit of a background on Lane. He is a city project engineer and a licensed professional with a master's degree in civil engineering. And Lane's passion, though, is a project that he calls simplepassivecashflow.com, which is a free podcast and an online learning resource that teaches people how to take, income from their day jobs and pour it into passive income, which we just had a conversation about. So he works a lot of high-paid professionals in corporate America that are frustrated from, just working the rat race, and they're pouring their income and money into passive income. And he has recently invested in a large multifamily in San Antonio, Texas, that is currently 626 units, and he invests all over the nation. So thank you very much for joining us today, Lane. We are so glad to have you on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, man, it's a real honor, man. I'm actually really interested in picking your brain on this show because I had some interesting conversations over the weekend with my acquisition manager about buy and hold and comparing single family residences to commercial. So I'm pretty excited. But to kick this thing off, tell us your superhero origin story. Where did you come from? How did you get started in real estate and so forth?
So my origin is pretty boring. Went to school, living that linear path that we're told to live, go to school, get a good job, study hard. I went to University of Washington up in Seattle, and I got an engineering degree, went to work, studied hard, worked hard, saved a lot of money. And on my About Me page and my website, I've got all this laundry list of all these dumb things that I would do to save money as a 20-year-old. Like wash my car in the rain and do all kinds of weird things like that. But I was able to save money for my first primary residence because that's what we were all told to do, that and invest in the stock market and mutual funds. But then I was traveling all the time with my job because I was doing construction management and I was never home. I was only home on Saturday. So I decided to rent it out, was that accidental landlord. And then I was like, whoa, this is crazy, right? Because I saved $80,000 for a $350,000 home, Class A rental or home in Seattle at the time in 2010, I'd say. And I rented it out. The rents were $2,200 and the mortgage was $1,600. And for like a young kid in his 20s, that was a lot of beer money to go around and play with. So I was like, shoot, I got to do this more.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then I started, listening to all these podcasts and books, and the rest was kind of history.
Wow. And where was that first house at? Was that in Hawaii or was that somewhere else?
So I was living in Seattle at the time. So, because that's where I went to school. And that's just where I decided to buy my first property to live in because I wanted to live there too.
So how much did it cost at the time? Because I know right now Seattle's like a really expensive market, isn't it?
Yeah, it costed about $350 at the time. Today it'd probably be worth. I sold it a few years back. Today it'd probably be worth like $450.
That's cool.
500.
And I bought a duplex after because I got a little more sophisticated. I realized that I bought an A-class rental, and usually A-class rentals are usually not where the sophisticated cash flow investors are investing in. They're more in the B and C class. So after that, I bought a B plus duplex in Seattle for $250 that rented for $2,000 a couple years later. And that one was a little bit better cash flow wise, but 2012 came along and the price was just going up and up and up, and I couldn't cash it, and I thought that was the end.
So take us from your first duplex to kind of more, how did you got from just being an engineer to getting into commercial? Because that's what you primarily focus in now, right? Is large multifamily?
Yeah, so there's kind of an intermediate step between there. I sold, or the next, 2012, I was looking around and things weren't cash flowing. That's where I realized the difference between cash flow and appreciation and investing. And me as a W-2 employee, I wanted to replace my income. So my goal was obviously cash flow. Appreciation, you can't eat that. So I started doing my research on the forums, learned about these turnkey rentals, and I was like, okay, well, I'm obviously not getting any cash flow in Seattle. This is 2012. So I bought this rental across the nation in Birmingham, and it worked out well. And so I sold my 2 Seattle rentals, did a 1031 exchange for 2 of those homes for 9 rentals out of state. And then I was kind of off and running as a out of state landlord, which is kind of a totally different game. When you're remote like that, definitely a good step to go to if you're going to go to the bigger stuff and be a little less hands off.
So were those all single families, or were they like duplexes? Like, what were they?
Yeah, they were single families, and I would recommend a lot of people to do single families, because the duplexes, triplexes, and quads, a lot of people, it's just hard to sell those things. You guys always got to think about your exit strategy. And when it's time to sell, you're just going to be selling it to a cheapskate investor like us.
Yeah, you can't really sell that to a homeowner. In single families, you can fix them up, and you get a lot of different people that are going to want to buy those. But yeah, multifamilies, pretty much you're just stuck with the investment crowd.
And they're always going to want to negotiate.
Face it.
60 cents on a dollar. 60 cents on a dollar. So talk to us about, so you kind of teach other people today, high level individuals that make a high income. And do you still have a day job? Are you still doing engineering, or now are you a full-time real estate investor?
No, I mean, I still go to the day job. I've got to go in like about an hour. But,
okay.
Nice.
I always tell people, figure out what your highest and best use is. Starting out, there's 3 resources. There's time, there's money, and there's knowledge/network. Figure out what you have. Starting out, I didn't have any time. I was traveling all the time. I was busy at my job. I had a decent amount of money because I was able to save. It took me a couple of years to save that down payment, but I could do it. And I didn't have very much knowledge, or my network was pretty small back then. So that's why the turnkey rental was the perfect thing to get started with, and the local rental that, just happened to buy at the right time. But, this day and age, it's you got to really figure out what you're good at. Gary Vaynerchuk, and if you guys listen to his stuff, but his thing is always pushing self-awareness, figuring out what you are good at, or what your skills and what your situation is. Because if you don't have any money, I'm sorry, I didn't do that. I don't know how to make, no money down deals. I mean, there's a lot of guys that do that, go learn from them. But if you're looking to keep doing what you're doing, and quite frankly, a lot of the guys that talk to me, they should just stay at the day job, right? Because that's simple passive cash flow at the end of the day. I mean, a lot of people worked hard going through college, and they busted their butt, and you know what? They deserve that.
Yeah, I actually really agree with that strategy. I mean, I've told a lot of newbies that have approached me of, how do I get out of my job? How do I replace my income with wholesaling? And a lot of the times my advice is, why do you have to stop working right away? I technically have a day job, right? I work for Simple Wholesaling, and I'm able to start slowly investing on the side. But without my day job income, I mean, it's just, for me, it would be a lot more feast or famine. It'd be a lot more stressful being married and having to provide for a family. So, I 100% agree. I don't think that, going the zero money down route is necessarily the best way to go. I think if, long-term you're going to be, in the game for some significant wealth, then, working a 9-to-5 job for, 5, 10 plus years, that will get you into a place where the vast majority of your career, you can be living off your rental portfolio or your investment portfolio. I think that is a smart move. So,
yeah.
What are your thoughts, Mr. Entrepreneur?
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm really interested in picking Lane's brain, because I'm probably, right there. I have, I guess, a day job. I work here at Simple Wholesaling and I own the business, but it's basically, we're flipping houses. So we have to do it every month or we don't make any money. And so I'm probably like your key person that you would talk to, Lane. So kind of tell me about this a little bit. So right now I'm working this job. We're making some pretty good money, me and my wife. And so now we're trying to think about the next, 5 years of our life. And what does that look like in 5 years from now? Do I still want to be growing this business, even though I really love it? What should we do next, or how should we build passive income? So what are the advantages of building passive income, I guess? Maybe take me back, and why should I invest in some passive income properties, and what does that kind of look like?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of guys, I ask, okay, so how much money are you making income as expenses? Because that's all I really care about. If you're higher than $30,000, you should probably graduate to larger syndications as soon as possible, but at least start out with the single family home, to get the experience.
So if you're larger than, what was that again?
$30,000 per year. And there's a few reasons why I picked that number.
And that's net.
Right. So like if you make $250,000 and you spend 200 of it, you're only 50 grand, right?
Gotcha.
Ideally, you'd like to save more than a good chunk of that. It's all about, like the cash flow game, right? The teacher is always the one that wins. It's not the doctor. Yeah. And something that came to mind, I did a speech on why not to quit your day job that you guys should check out on my YouTube channel. But the gist of it is, I think we all, all of us are entrepreneurs here, but I think we get like this ego about like, we're going to be entrepreneurs, screw our job. Like we're going to go all in, right? Woohoo. Right. But the day job is the thing that gives us our foundation. A lot of business negotiations and making deals, if you're not coming from a place of abundance, you're making bad deals.
Yeah.
And I think all the information out there that you're seeing from all these YouTube guys and all these role models and gurus, they're all the self-selecting guys. They're the guys that made it. You're not seeing the whole bunch of people who failed and struck out and never got back into it.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, being an entrepreneur, I mean, yeah, you want to stop working for the man and leave the rat race, but the entrepreneurship, if you do it the wrong way and you just stay in that business quadrant, you just created yourself a new rat race.
Yeah, 100%. I'm actually going to link your talk in our show notes, guys. The show notes will be listed at, what is it, guys? It's 3 W's, www.simplewholesaling.com/episode 86. I used to have a terrible habit, 86 episodes in, of just saying 2 W's. And everyone kept giving me crap about it. So it's 3 W's.
Cool. So kind of take me into this. So, when you said $30,000, I was like, wow, I thought you were talking about when I was a teacher, I was making, $30K a year, but you're talking about if you make $100,000 a year, but you only spend $70,000. So basically you have $30,000 left in your bank account. Is that kind of what you're
It's the net.
describing?
It's the net that really matters.
Okay. So where,
so we'll go on the two examples, on the opposite ends of the spectrum, say I'll take like a doctor, they make 300 grand a year. They spend 200 of them. I don't know how they do that, but they do. So they've got 100 grand to play with. As you can see, they've got a pretty big war chest, and for them to buy single family homes, they're going to be buying 1 or 2 a year. But then in these single family homes, when you get to a certain point, at $200 to $300 of cash flow, you're going to need like 20 or 50 of these things, which is just not doable. I mean, you're going to go crazy. And this is kind of a lesson that I learned when I got to double digits of single family homes. It's just, I wasn't going to hit my goals with that. And it was just, I just created myself another job. Yeah, I'm managing the manager and I have them doing all that stuff, but it's just not what cool kids who haven't created themselves another job are doing. And then, you go on the other end of the spectrum, you got guys who are kind of scraping by. These are the guys that I like, right? Like these are the guys hustling and, they're only able to save $5,000, $10,000 a year. And it's like, well, that's cool, right? So keep saving that. 2-3 years from now, buy one single family home and then save another couple years and buy another. And now maybe instead of one every 2 years, you're buying one every year. And once you get up to that critical mass, like 5 to 10 rentals, now now you're off and moving. I mean, it's all about moving money from that active side to that passive side.
So on that, I want to ask a question. And again, this is coming from some conversations I had with my acquisition manager over the weekend. And you know, sorry, technology is killer. This is making recorder said it was low battery, but it shouldn't be, because it's all right. I think it's good now. But go ahead and edit that out, Dave. So I want to, from the conversation I was having with my acquisition manager over the weekend, he was highlighting to me that so we have properties in Indianapolis. Probably 90% of the properties that we sell are in Indianapolis. But then we have a few off properties that are in like Anderson, Muncie, Newcastle, that are very depressed economies, no appreciation whatsoever. You're going to buy, a $15,000, $20,000 house right now, and in 5 years, you're probably going to, sell it for, 15, 20,000. But why people like those is because they can be all in at 15,000 and still rent it out for $500 a month, which is a ridiculous return. So from your perspective, when you compared apples to apples, going from single family in like say Birmingham to buying to the commercial side, to multifamily, to syndications and things like that, aren't you making, like, in terms of sheer return on investment, more on kind of these lower end, from a cash flow perspective, aren't you making more money with single families than with commercial?
I'd say the rent to value ratios are probably a little stronger in multifamily, because you're running it like a business. Like single family homes, I mean, let's face it, we're using bubblegum and masking tape to fix a lot of the repairs when it comes up. But multifamily is done with that really, really professional property management, and they're running this thing like a business. So if you're not having like rent to value ratios of 1.5 or higher, it's just not going to work for you. I mean, a lot of the expenses are like $4,000 a year per expenses per unit. And you're getting a lot of return for that $15,000 home that's, rents for $500 or more. But you got to remember, like, what are we doing this for, right? We're doing it for the cash flow and the passive income. And when I hear those numbers, I don't think of like how much money you're making. I'm thinking about how much headaches you're creating for yourself. I mean, how many of those properties are you going to get? I mean, you're going to go crazy doing those. I mean, with my guy, I invest in India, and we should probably talk about, working together to help finding properties for my guys. But I tell them strictly, don't go anything less than $800, $900 of rent per month. Because like the level of tenant, it's just not worth it. And we always use, why are we doing real estate? I don't particularly like real estate, but real estate is a hard asset. And the big thing is it's leverageable. Like you can't leverage a $15,000 home. You can't even leverage a $60,000 home. That's why, we go after the 80,000 ones and above.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I hope I'm not over talking you, Brett, because I feel like I'm asking a lot of questions. But so let's dive into a little bit on how you invest out of state, because I mean, even if you're, and you have students and stuff, or people that you work with that are buying, how do you, because in my mind, even if I'm local and I'm buying, $15,000 property in Newcastle, I'm still going to be running into some of the same conundrum that you run into as an out-of-state investor, right? Like, so you still have to have a solid property manager in place. I mean, you say you're buying turnkey, right? So are you working primarily with turnkey companies, or kind of dive into how you overcome some of the management, difficulties being out of state?
Yeah. So I guess maybe dive in that last question there. How am I buying properties? Yeah, mostly turnkey initially. Obviously we're paying above retail price. But quickly transition my guys to finding that broker to work with who you trust, and picking up rental properties that have $5,000-$10,000 of rehab, light rehab, that rent for above that $800-$900 a month to get the little better tenant. And then, sorry, what was that? What we were talking about earlier? So
I was asking, like, so how do you? So if because the sense that you made about picking
okay.
commercial
Yeah.
over like $15,000 single families in Newcastle or Muncie, what you were saying is that you have a massive management issue. Like you have all these properties that you're going to be dealing with, but even if you're buying multifamily, you still have all those properties that are hours and hours away from you. So how do you
Yeah,
overcome
so
those
the
management?
property management for multifamily, they're just far superior. Kind of like how the broker in multifamily is far superior than your
Hmm.
real estate broker in single family. These guys, they actually do their jobs. They look at the numbers, they manipulate things, and everything is cookie cutter in a multifamily. And all the repairs is the same. And quite frankly, the single family tenant is kind of an entitled tenant.
Hmm.
I mean, yeah, they're renting this $500 home, but they feel like this is their house.
Right.
Whereas a multifamily tenant, even if it's $500 or $600, they kind of know their role. They're in that box. They can't really screw anything up. But a house, you can screw up stuff massively. I mean, I had like a person move out the other day or other month, and they caused like $27,000 of repairs.
Wow.
I'm like, it's hard to do that in a little 600 square foot apartment,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think definitely makes a lot of sense. Plus, you're dealing, and I think like what Lane said, it's these managers treat it like a business, and everything's the exact same. So they have a great system. All the doorknobs are the same. Probably the kitchen cabinets are the same. Everything's the exact same. When you got 100 different houses rather than a 100-unit apartment, everything's just a little bit different because the houses are all different. So it can be a little bit more messy, and all that. So
Right.
that might
Yeah,
just
and the multifamily, those guys, they have these systems in place. When you buy a property, you want to be having that property management already on your team so they can do a walkthrough of all the units. And they're doing exactly that. They're going through every single unit. They're inventorying every piece of hardware in there. And then they come to me and they say, "Hey, Lane, do you want to upgrade the brass knobs? 20% of them probably need to be replaced anyway." Those have those sort of numbers.
yeah.
It's just kind of phenomenal. And just from contractor standpoint, when you're dealing with your single family home, you're working with Bob the cabinet guy, right? But when you're
Right.
doing cabinets in your apartment, you're working with ABC, super big corporation. They're going to show up on time.
Yeah.
So walk me into what that looks like to get started then, because I mean, I've kind of been on the fence on whether, I had a rental property earlier this year and I ended up selling it because I like wholesaling better and I'd rather save up more money to get into commercial kind of in the future. So like, I'm a brand new person, that has a day job, is extremely busy. What do I need to do to get started? Am I going to look for a syndication to jump a hold of, or am I going to like try to do, I don't know if you're familiar with Michael Blanc, but he has a strategy as being the syndicator. And kind of talking to mom and pops to put an investment pool together. Like how do you, find the market you want to invest in? How do you get started?
Yeah, but I think before we get started, I mean, we've been kind of bashing the single family home, but I'm still, that's how you get started. I mean, the pros and cons go in the favor of multifamily, but that's how you get started. That's how you get that seed money to get going, because you're going to need about $100,000 to $200,000 of liquidity to get going in multifamily. But yeah, there's two paths to that. That you can jump in on a syndication and get some experience that way, or you can kind of be like the mom and pop investor and go from the 4-plex to the 8-plex to the 16-plex to the 32-plex. Two different roads, two very different roads. Obviously, I picked the syndication route because when I analyze those smaller properties like the 32 units and the 40 units, I'm just not seeing the pricing. And I contribute that to the fact that most mom.
Hey Lane,
plex,
hey Lane,
32
real
plex, 40
quick.
plex, and
Hey, real
so
quick,
much.
you cut out. Could you start over?
Okay, where was I
Sorry.
last?
Just what's the numbers versus mom and pop versus syndication.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so there's two paths to get into multifamily. The mom and pop investor that goes the 16, 32, 48 unit path and to bigger and better things. And then the syndication route, jumping in on a syndication, just learning that way. Obviously I've gone the syndication route, but and that's because I started to look at, smaller units like 30 units and 40 units. And, if you're below 60 units, you don't have that property manager out there all day long. That's a big thing. But I just found the pricing in those smaller units to be a lot worse than what you find in the bigger stuff, and just couldn't make the numbers work. And I contribute that to the fact that in those smaller units, you just have too much competition from unsophisticated mom and pop investors that have been doing it a while. And just quite frankly, they don't use all the electronic and information out there. They don't have the contacts. They're not in forums networking with the right people. They're the mom and pop investors. And, yeah, they got a lot of money, but they're not the smart kids doing it. And those are the guys you're competing in. So that's why I went to syndication off the bat. But it's a choice. You got to pick one of those two paths.
And with the syndication, that seems, I never got into that because it just seems too complicated for me. It's something that, I don't know, just seems too messy. I guess that's just how my brain operates. But take us into that. What does that look like? I mean, how do you structure it? How do you structure a syndication?
Yeah, so what you just mentioned there, that's what a lot of people say, and that's the beauty of it, right? And it's something confusing or sort of hard about it. That's where the opportunity is, because nobody else really wants to do it. And it's a different game. It's not really you've got to kind of pivot your business. It's not finding deals, operating it. It's more networking with other people and working that way, finding investors. But the analogy I like to use for syndication is the airplane analogy. So, airplane flies in the cockpit. There are several partners and people flying the airplane. These are the general partners in there. There might be 1, 2, or even 4 or 5 of them sometimes. So that cockpit, they do everything. They find the deal. They manage the manager. They find the lending. They find the investors. They operate it. They're doing everything. That cockpit of general partners, their net worth needs to be greater than or equal to the loan size. So if they're going after like a $5 million loan, their net worth better be greater than or equal to it. So that's one out of the 3 components. The second is they need to have the liquidity because the bank's going to require liquidity out of that general partnership group. And then the last thing there is that they need to have the down payment, but they also need to have the experience. So, a lot of the stuff that I work with is non-recourse lending. And that's really the reason why I went to multifamily. A lot of the single family homes that you get Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac loans, they're all recourse loans. So if the property does bad, you still got to pay back 100% of that loan back potentially. But a lot of these larger buildings that are 90% occupied or more, you can get a Freddie, Fannie non-recourse loan on it. That, if the property goes bad, yeah, you lose your down payment, but they don't come after you for the rest, assuming that there's no foul play involved. And that's cool. That blew my mind, right? Like, I was like, why is Fannie and Freddie like subsidizing all these rich investors, these syndicators? And, but think about it, like our country needs more workforce housing, more decent housing. And this is the way they're incentivizing investors to go down this route. So,
wow, that's
a big thing.
That's a game changer information.
Yeah,
there.
But it's only on properties that are 90% unoccupied or above. So, all that stuff of, hey, this property is 30% vacant. I don't even touch that stuff. Let other people do that. Mm-hmm. It's a lot more high risk, high reward. And, I'm not really looking to take chances these days. I'm more like a singles doubles kind of guy now. Mm. So only non-recourse lending.
So going back to something you said previously that you're buying a lot of turnkey, were you saying that you were suggesting your, people that you like coach or that you're advising to buy single families turnkey, or do you actually buy commercial property that's already turnkey?
Single family, that's turnkey.
Okay.
And that's a lot of the people that I help. I mean, I don't really, coaching is not really scalable, right? That's not simple passive cash flow for me. That's super trading time for money. So I really don't like doing that. I just mostly put it up there to deter people from thinking that I'm a constant supply of advice. But I mean, everything's out there to go do what you need to do. I mean, you come to my website, you come to yours, and all the resources out there. I mean, yeah, go buy a rental property from a turnkey provider. I mean, good luck. But it's, how do you take the next step? How do you go from there to working with a broker and doing it remotely? And how do you transition to multifamily? Like I mentioned one tip: don't buy single, duplexes, triplexes, or quads, because when you're going to jump up to the bigger things in 3 to 5 years, you're going to have a hard time making that jump.
Yeah, definitely. That's good stuff. Well, guys, check out. Do you have any other resources, Lane, that you want to give before we go in the next section of the show?
Normally, I just want to say we're recording right now, like on video. So Brett's not like show notes, but that's definitely what's going on in his mind. He wants me to mention something in the show notes.
It's cool. I mean, it's the first one, right? Or you guys are doing it like this?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's new to us too. Yeah. So, do you have any other resources for someone to find out any more information about? Where did you go, when you want to learn about syndication or buying multifamilies or just buying cash flow rentals? Where's like one great resource they could go to?
I went to Bigger Pockets initially, but these days you get a lot of the sharks on there. The guys the marketers and the providers trying to sell you stuff. You got to really find the investors. But it's hard, right? Because passive investors are not really trolling the internet forums, right? They're living life. They're kicking butt at their job. But I've found quite a few of them. I've created secret Facebook groups, and I try and filter who comes in. So, if people are into that stuff, set up a call with me, and I want to figure out who you are first.
Yeah.
And what you're all about.
Awesome.
But that, the peer group is a big thing, right? And that was how I got started. I contacted about 4 or 5 investors who were actually buying in those states, and from those people, and I built relationships with them as best I could from 3,000 miles away. And, I just started building a web, right? I mean, it's just like finding syndication deals. If I haven't worked with a person before, I'm going to contact who invested with them in the past, because, my network has slowly grown to a certain point where I can do that. And, I asked, hey, how was the last deal, or how was the deal before that? And how is this person's character? And, the good thing is a lot of the good people hang out with each other. It's those lone wolves that you got to look out for that don't have the social media profiles and those kind of obscure guys out there. Because, if you're not with the crowd, got to question that.
Yep. Cool.
I like that.
Yeah, we'll put a link in the show notes if someone. I do agree. When you're in a private Facebook group or peer group, you have to. You only want to work with people that are serious, and there's a lot of people out there that are not serious. So I think you got to vet that. So cool. We'll put that in the show notes.
In the show notes, we found at www.simplewholesaling.com/episode 86.
Cool. You ready for the next part?
Yeah, man. Are you?
Yep. Let's do it.
1, 2, 3.
Going deep. So in this part of the show, Lane, we just like to ask some more personal questions about you and your life, and just kind of how you integrate your business with your life. We know that you're a civil engineer and you're a busy guy, and thank you for joining us on the show today. But, you're preaching simple systems, modern best practices in your investing life. Are you able to do any of that in your personal life? And what does that look like?
I mean, I'm a industrial engineer, and those are the guys by education. They go into factories and they cut out all the fat and make things super lean. I'm a big systems guy. Everything helps me put on my podcasts and invest very efficiently and manage things. But I've heard this quote about when you're with loved ones or family, it's not about how much you pack into the time. It's more about quantity time is the thing. It's something that I always think about. And I don't have kids, so that's kind of what I'm doing now while the getting's good. But eventually things will change.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Definitely.
Brett always says that too, actually.
And for some reason I may stop simple passive cash flow at some point.
Yeah, definitely. I think you got to have the quantity in order to get the quality. Some people say, yeah, I can spend 10 minutes with, my family or loved one, and, and that's good enough. But I think when you have the quantity, the quality is going to come no matter what. So that's cool.
Yeah, it's kind of like working out. You know, you might have an off day at the gym, but it matters about just the consistency of going.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Certain things are quantity and certain things are quality.
Yeah, for sure. Well, my question for you, man, in the going deep section is, you know, really what is your why? Like why is passive income important to you? Why is investing important to you? I mean, you know, why do you do what you do? What gets you up at 5 o'clock in the morning, you know?
Yeah, I've really tried to find why I do this the last 6 to 12 months. And I think what it comes down to is I see a whole bunch of, I've been getting these cool emails from people who they bought their first rental and their total financial outlook has changed. Like a young family that both of the parents are working and now they don't have, one of the parents don't have to work now, or, the other one, they're looking at, instead of a 45-year career, they're looking at like a 10 to 15-year career, right? Like that's just life changing.
Yeah.
And I see this big dogma of the Wall Street and mutual funds, and it's just stealing money away from middle-class America, the hardworking people that were kind of like forced, like myself, to go work for the man, get a good job, work forever, and then, save up this big chunk of money only to hope that it's enough. I think it's a little an unbeaten path, this, investing in real estate, but I think more people need to get into it. And so I try and brand myself as, I'm really not that special, right? Like I just tried something and I fell into it, and I put the right people around me, and I just slowly build. And, I think I have this kind of vendetta against the big institutions out there that are just robbing people blind. We need to get more money out of that Wall Street casino that's, people are playing around with the money, and there's a lot of corruption, and get it back into Main Street projects with, real people getting better returns.
It's awesome, man.
Yeah. I think you really, hit the nail on the head when you talked about just getting into it slow. That's what we always encourage people. People, they look at you, Lane, they look at our business, and they say, well, I want to do this big syndication, or I want to do a few hundred wholesale deals or whatever. And, I've been doing this thing for 10 years. You've been doing this for a while. And just buy that first single family rental house, or just go out and do that first wholesale deal. Just don't worry about the vast and the greatness and the bigness of it. Just get started. Start off slow. And it just takes time to build a team, to build, into that 626 multi-units. It just takes a lot of time to get the experience to do that. So I just encourage you, if you're out there listening, don't worry about the 600 unit or the 300 deals that we'll probably do. Just do one thing, and I think that's why Lane kept coming back to just getting that first single family home. That's a great place to start. You get the experience, you get the management feel of it, you get a little bit of cash flow and just the confidence and the experience behind it. And then really it's not that much different than buying a single family home than buying an 8-unit, or it's kind of the same process, you just a little bit more numbers behind it. So I think that's my advice here.
Couldn't say it better myself.
In this last section, we just like to end on a little bit of a lighter note, Lane. So thank you again for joining us today. This is called the Touch of Randomness. We're going to ask you a couple of random questions and just kind of name the first thing that comes to your mind. So, you're an out-of-state investor and you probably travel a lot. What is one city that you really look forward to flying into?
Back home to Hawaii.
I know you're like from the greatest.
I was about to say like
scenery.
He's probably from one of those.
Right. Cool. I mean, a lot of the places we're buying today is in that Rust Belt, or that I call it the smiley face of America. That you go from, the Dallas thing in the middle, and then Carolinas on one side, and then the Phoenix on the other. I mean, it's cool to go there. I think what's cool is when you can get a few people to go with you along the way, and then you're on a business trip. I think that's kind of fun.
Yeah, it's awesome.
But I don't do this because I really like real estate. I like it because it's a means to the end, and it gets me there the quickest. And I help a lot of people along the way too.
So my question. I mean, I have another question written down, but if home is your favorite, what's your least favorite? Like, for example, me, when I used to live in
Indiana.
California. and when I drove to Indiana, there were some incredible states. I used to joke and say that, like, I think on Utah and Colorado, like, God was, when he was making that, he was just like going all out. He's like, I'm going to do this masterpiece. But then when he got to Kansas, he's like, dude, I just got to get this done. Because there's not much in Kansas. The greatest thing in Kansas is Kansas City, and it's in Missouri. So sorry if you're in Kansas, but much love to you, but it's not my cup of tea.
Yeah, a lot of the, I only invest in secondary markets and maybe tertiary markets, but, just something that comes to mind. Another reason why I do what I do, when in my early 20s and I was doing that construction management gig, I was traveling all over the place, and being a young 22-year-old kid, being, that highest frequent flyer status, flying first class, that wasn't fun, going to like places like North Dakota, Montana, going to Denver, Seattle to Denver to wherever off in that northern plains. And, sitting around with the guys with all the suits, I was like, this sucks, right? Like, I don't want to be like these guys who have these road warriors who think they're all cool with the high freaking flyer status. That's just like, that's bad quality of life. I mean, that's what I defined it as. And I was like, no, I'm not going to be doing this when I'm older. Certainly not when I'm these guys' ages.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So North Dakota probably is your least favorite.
Yeah. I worked back in, I forget when that was, but a while back when the oil was really big, and, driving around the plains coming up, because back then the hotels are really hard to find. They're like 100 miles away. You drive up to where the oil fields are, and it just looks like hell on earth. Like the oil's burning and the sunset, and that was when they had all those man camps up there, and I was like, man, this is the worst place to be. Absolute worst.
I need to go back home. Get on the beach. Sounds good. Well, hey, Lane, thanks for playing our games today. But anyways, thanks again for being on the show, taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you're getting ready to head off to your day job, but if someone wants to find more information about you, your podcast, your education, or your Facebook groups, where do they go?
Just come to simplepassivecashflow.com, sign up for the newsletter, get access to all the spreadsheets I got and PDFs. Just got to give me your email there. But then, let's get to know each other. Come and listen to Simple Passive Cashflow podcasts. And, I would say listen to the first dozen foundation podcasts, and let's have a chat, like no agenda, 10, 15 minutes. I can usually get someone, from an outside perspective, get them down the right path, whatever they have working with.
That's awesome.
Cool. Love that name. It's very simple.
Yeah. I know. That's kind of cool. I just realized that halfway through.
I know. I just realized it just now. So
yeah. The saying that I like, is why I picked it was, things aren't easy, but they're simple, right? Like it's not easy to buy a rental property or wholesale home, but it's simple. Like it's pretty damn simple.
The process is, definitely. I like that saying. Cool. Well, check the show notes out, guys, at
www.simplewholesaling.com/episode 86.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Lane, and we appreciate you and all that you're doing. And we just hope you stay blessed, man.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
It's a pleasure. Talk soon.
Bye.
All right.
Awesome, man. That was a great show.
Yeah. Thanks, Lane. Appreciate it.
Yeah. If add me to your guys' inventory list. I like indie.
Are you only looking for multi-units here? Or are you looking for?
No. I mean, for my guys too.
Yeah.
Some of the coaching clients, they always look for. And for me, it's not about finding the absolute best deals, but it's more reliability, right?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, if you send us your email, I think we have your email, but
yeah, Lane at Simple Passive Cashflow.
Okay. Yeah, we'll definitely add you to the list.
I'll get you added, and if you want to, I'll send you an email. If you want to send me your criteria, what I do, because I'm actually the head of disposition, so I handle all the buyer relationships. I'll reverse engineer for you, or reverse wholesale for you. So I'll find out your criteria and start sending you things that are actually what you want to look at.
Yeah.
Connect with.
Let's do it, man.
What was that last part, bro? You cut out.
Oh, if you guys find a multi, let's team up and I can fund it.
Okay.
Yeah. I might take you up on that.
Sounds good.
All right, man. Sounds good.
I appreciate it,
Have
Lane.
fun with you guys.
All
The
right,
setup
all right.
looks good. I like the sign.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, we just came into this room, so
Yeah, we have a really awesome guy. He's the head of content and marketing, and
he also
he does
builds
this
these
on the
things.
side.
Yeah, so if you need one, just let us know.
Maybe if you guys like stand up and like got rid of the doors, that'd be a different view too.
Yeah, it'd be
Oh, yeah.
cool.
But then
Yeah,
we'd
definitely.
see you guys a little more closer up. That may be a little too close.
Maybe we'll
Not
zoom
enough
in
room.
on the next one.
Yeah. All right, guys.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Talk
Thanks.
soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.